to the second episode of Persistence, brought to you by the Office of Student Retention at Shippensburg University. My name is Nathan, and I'm here today with our co-host, John Ograh, and our special guest, Kurt Dunkel, from Shippensburg University. I know that you're
Good morning,
kind
guys.
you're kind of over two offices right now, right? Still, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep, I am.
okay.
Yep. I always say I wear a couple different hats. So, and hats are good when the weather's cold like it is now.
Yep, absolutely. So for the people that may not know you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I know John and I have spoke to you a lot, but for the people that don't know you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I work in the Dean of Students office. So I coordinate two different programs. One of the programs is the Connection program, which is an AOD program. AOD stands for alcohol and other drugs. So we work to do prevention, intervention, education on that topic, on alcohol and other drugs, how to make sure students are safe, making good choices, learning about consequences, learning about that topic, and offering support when needed, and hopefully doing more prevention than intervention. So that's one of my roles, and I can talk more about that as we go. And then the other piece of that is the commuter support program, which is kind of almost a broader off-campus support program. It's newer, actually, at the university. It was started when I took the role, actually. So again, kind of newer, about going into our third year here, 2.5 years in. And we work to do a variety of things, mainly support our commuters who come from a little further away, but also, the students that live close by in a local off-campus area, providing programming, support, and doing a lot with COVID, actually, over the past semester, making sure students are getting what they need, that they have a voice, and developing that program, and particularly the new Raider Neighbor program, which is a group of students that work to support our off-campus population. So they're my two roles. I've also been a part-time assistant track coach since I graduated with my undergrad at Ship. So I guess this would have been the 21st year, I guess. That's been kind of put on hold due to COVID. But in that regard, I am a two-time Ship grad. So I graduated in 1998 with my bachelor's degree, and then 2004 with my master's, and the master's is in college counseling, both from Ship, and have worked full-time in a couple different offices here at Ship, Counseling Center, Academic Success Program. I was also the coordinator for Student Athlete Support Services, and now currently in the Dean of Students office. So grew up in a city called Altoona. Altoona is kind of midway between State College and Pittsburgh, west central portion of the state. Came to Ship. They recruited me as a student athlete. And I always tell people I came here because I wanted to be a Navy pilot. And I thought they had the Navy ROTC program because somebody from the, I guess one of the admissions reps at a college fair at my high school said, yeah, we have Navy ROTC, but they had Army ROTC. So I wasn't able to kind of follow that dream. But, things happen for a reason. There's this thing called happenstance, and things unfolded really, really well for me during my time at Ship. And here I am, I guess about 25 plus years later. Hard to believe. But so I live in Chambersburg, and I've got two sons, 11 and 13. And as we were chatting previous to us starting the recording, they're upstairs doing their Zoom schooling right now. So, but yeah, that's a little bit about me. Happy to answer more as we go.
Great.
Wow, that is interesting. What a wealth of experience you brought in, Kurt.
Well, thanks, John. I try. I've seen a lot from different perspectives on our campus, because there's different areas on the campus. So it's been kind of cool for me to see the academic side of things, the student affairs side of things, the athletic side of things. So definitely proud of those experiences for sure.
Yeah. So Kurt, I understand that's why you were telling us about yourself. Mm-hmm. You kind of touched on my next question, mm-hmm. but I will still go ahead to ask it so that that in the event that they need help and they want to connect with you. So the question would be, what does your office do?
Yep, yep. So I'll start with the off-campus piece. Like I was saying, we work with you know, the local property managers, the local landlords, the reps from, you know, the police and local government officials, and but most importantly, the local students, you know, Shippensburg students that live in the local community. There's probably over 4,000 students that do not live on campus, so they're considered commuter students. Some come from Waynesboro or Gettysburg, some come from Carlisle or Hagerstown, but many, many, many more actually live in Shippensburg. They might still live with their, you know, the family that they lived with in high school, or they might just live in an off-campus house or apartment. That's the vast majority. So we work to help students on those fronts. It could be anything. I mean, I've had students come to me with landlord issues, or with looking for an apartment or a house for next year, or a commuter related question, parking related question, how to move on to campus if they're commuter, how to move off campus if they live on campus. You know, we do a lot. We do a lot, and you know, the most important part, and like I mentioned before, is the kind of newly formed Raider Neighbor program. So we work with a group of really great, mainly undergraduate students that are all commuters. They're all local students, off-campus students that essentially want to make the community a better place. They want to, you know, make sure our students are safe, make sure that students have things to do, make sure that they have a voice, and if they're running into any problems, they have an office to go to. But also just get to know each other, because there's a lot of problems that can be solved just by having a relationship with somebody, knowing where to go, knowing the right person to ask the question to, and a lot of problems can be avoided just knowing that that there are services available, but also more importantly, just kind of taking pride in your community, you know, taking pride in the little neighborhood that you might live in, or, you know, how to talk to your neighbor, how to be a good tenant, what your rights and responsibilities are as a tenant. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell with the Commuter Support Office. In terms of the Connection Office, that program has been around for many years here at Ship, actually. Sarah Shupp, Donna Gross, who just retired, both were in that role. And the Connection program is essentially a support service for students on the topic of alcohol and other drugs. Like, we provide hopefully really good information to students about some of the risks associated with use, consequences associated, you know, with use, maybe also just being aware of what substances do to your body, how it can impact your choices and your relationships and impact your experience here at Ship, how to make better choices, how to interact like in a healthy and safe way. I work with the RDs. I have a GA, and we have a really, really awesome peer education team. So there's kind of a big team with the Connection program. And that's probably what I like the most about both roles is I get to work with a lot of great students who are motivated, who are willing to help and support, who are willing to get involved on campus. And like I said before, we do intervention, education, and prevention. So we're trying to minimize the problems that students might experience with alcohol and other drugs. We're trying to intervene when they might have a problem. And we're just trying to educate them about how to make good choices, essentially. So if a student does have an issue, they can either, you know, just reach out to me, you know, on their own volition, so to speak, or sometimes they actually get referred to the program if they have make a bad choice and have some type of consequence that kind of is associated with alcohol and other drugs. They get referred to my program. We do 2 meetings and just try to educate and intervene. And generally, the students have a positive experience. We definitely don't pathologize it. We try to make it developmental. We try to make it really kind of appropriate and focus more on education, not simply a consequence. Okay, if that makes sense. So we do programming. You know, we do both offices, both programs do a lot of programming. We try to get involved with faculty, staff, students. Just yesterday, I was emailing about a program that we're most likely going to do in the spring, and that program is a collaborative one with different departments and faculty and staff and students. So, and we also, we try to help support and offer other things for students to do as well. So if we say, you know, we don't want students out, you know, partying in an unhealthy way and using an unhealthy way, we try to collaborate and try to offer other things to do that would be safer and better alternatives. So they're what my offices do. I can tell you my door is always open. Literally not so much right now because I'm working from home, kind of like you guys. But when I'm on campus, my door is open. I'm always available. And that's probably the best part of my job is when people reach out to me when they need something, when they want a little extra support or they have a question or want to collaborate on something. That's what I love. So I'm always available. And I love to hear from students, faculty, and staff as well.
That's great. There's so much there. I just want, before I get to my next question, I just want to touch on this for a minute. With the connection program, from what I'm getting, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not about teaching abstinence from using, because I think it's common to know that, we can't just tell students don't do that, right?
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
very educational and not punitive at all. But like I said, more educational.
Yeah. I think that's right. I mean, of course, there's always going to be a punitive aspect when somebody makes a choice that ends up where they maybe break a policy or a law, some type
Right.
of rule. I mean, there
Right.
is going to be some type of consequence, and that goes beyond SHIP. That could be something from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The police get involved. But I think more importantly, or just as importantly, it's about educating. It's about saying, reflecting, like, okay, let's talk through the choices. Let's talk through where things maybe went wrong. Let's talk through maybe what you didn't know, or maybe what you knew and you didn't pay attention to, just kind of reflecting on that. And it's also just providing an opportunity for students to talk about their choices and what they did, because the topic of alcohol and other drugs, sometimes there's a taboo associated with it, sometimes a shame. So we really want to provide avenues and opportunities, whether it be one-on-one, small groups, or large groups, to just simply talk about this, and for students to own it, and not to be ashamed about it, to talk about it. And we're not trying to stigmatize it. And we can never be in a position where we're going to say, oh, students will just party and they're going to get high and drunk and that's just what they're going to do. It's a rite of passage. That's not the key. The key is to saying, okay, if you're going to make choices, you have to be aware of the consequences, and you have to be aware of how your choices might impact others. Okay, that if a student's completely aware, that's a great first step. But also starting to own their behavior and own their choices. That's really developmentally from 18 to 22 a big part of what someone goes through in that kind of age range, especially at university life. So that's another kind of part of it. But also we want to support, how do I want to say it, kind of a broad spectrum. I mean, somebody might be abstinent and that's a great choice for them, and we want to support that. Someone might be abstinent because they just don't want to do it. Someone might be abstinent because they've had a problem and they need to be abstinent because maybe they had a struggle with substance use disorder, or maybe someone's of legal age and they want to consume a legal substance in a responsible way, and we want to support people doing that as well. And so we want to educate and support across the spectrum. But by and large, like I said, we want to be able to talk about this and bring these conversations to the forefront, and not shame people and stigmatize people, because I think when you do that, you push things underground and kind of people don't talk then. So the whole key is connecting and talking, because we believe that creates the healthiest community and that connects people in the best way.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I think that's such a strong difference to make in the work that you're doing right now. Because I think that that's
important.
such a misconception around that.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
So moving forward, we're going to switch gears just a little bit. I was wondering if you could talk about some things that you like to do in your free time, when you have some.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it's hard to find it, but the good thing about what I do is I enjoy it. So, which frames free time a little differently, I think. But free time, definitely spend with my kids and my closest friends and family. They're super important to me. It's been tough, as you guys know, with COVID this year. We've had to kind of redo and rethink how we communicate and interact, and that's been part of a difficult learning process for a lot of us. But I mean, just for example, I've gotten probably more time with my kids, for example, than I have in ever, maybe, or
Right.
certainly in years and years and years. So that's been kind of one of those silver linings. But I also love to travel, and travel's been kind of tweaked a little bit. Maybe it's more hiking locally, little
Mm.
road trips here and there, maybe camping and kind of socially distancing, just getting away from everybody into the woods and into the mountains and kind of being safe and just enjoying nature that way. I like to cook. I mean, I try to be healthy. I try to exercise and live a somewhat healthy lifestyle. So cooking is something I enjoy. And just like learning new things. I love, like, people always say, oh, you know so many little different facts, or, I
Mhm.
love trivia, and games and just reading. Nonfiction, something I really love. I mean, I just, not a huge TV watcher. I
Mhm.
do watch things here and there, but, and I don't binge watch a lot. Ironically, I did have a weekend free recently, and I binge watched something called Manhunt Deadly Games. It was just about the Atlanta bombing and the kind of manhunt to find the person that did it. I really like nonfiction. I feel like sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, and some of the stories that are out there in our world just amaze me.
Yeah.
So I do like nonfiction, and I do just like doing stuff around the house. Honestly, just like fixing things and painting things and doing projects and repairs and just the normal things that people do to their house, mowing the grass, just stuff like that. I just enjoy things like that, and I like to think I'm funny. I don't know if people always get to see that side of me, but I like to think I'm fun. I'm probably not as funny as I would like to think that people think of me, but if as long as I can get a laugh out of some of the things I say, I guess that's all that matters, right?
Mhm.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I must say, I want to thank you for sharing your likes and what you do at your free time. Um, it is really clear that COVID-19 has affected the way we work as, student affairs practitioners on campus, and how we even view our students. And that will lead me to my next question. If you could change something about the school or about a student's experience with a magic wand, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I would always want to frame it with, like I said, I'm a Ship alum. I'm proud of my degrees, and I'm proud of the work I've done here. And I think Ship does a great job. If you compare us to our counterparts, within the state system and kind of regionally, I think we're near the top, and that's something I'm proud of. So I wouldn't want to change a whole.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want to change a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
One thing that I don't know, I've thought about for a while, and I don't know how this would be able to be implemented. I think it's easier at like a smaller private school, but some type of formal mentorship program I think could be
Hmm.
powerful. There's a lot of really good mentorship that goes on kind of at a smaller scale, department level, program level, and informally, with coaches and athletes, and just kind of the informal mentoring. But I've always kind of kicked around this idea of kind of like, uh, from your inception, from the time you arrive at Ship to the time you leave, how can you formally be connected with like a mentor, whether that be another student who's older, another student in your program, a faculty or staff member, um, and get the benefits of that mentorship in some formalized structure. And then as you go through your experience at Ship, then you kind of become a mentor for the students coming in. Like I said, it happens so informally across the board in a lot of ways, and that's, I think, one of the most powerful parts of the student experience. I think. I mean, I can use athletics as an example. It just happens, whether that be the coach set it up or not. It just is something that happens, and that benefited me a lot. And I can, some of the programs I've worked in, ASP, for example, it's been cool to see that, or even with our peer educators, it's been cool to see that kind of mentorship experience. So I think that would be kind of cool. Um, but I think by and large, just in terms of, the question was kind of like change something about the student's experience. I just think having students imparted with this question of really, really like, why are you here? Like, that's
Hmm.
important, really, to reflect on that coming in. What can you offer Ship? And then also, what can Ship offer you?
Yeah.
I'd love to see students really, really think about, now that they're here, like, what can they offer the community in which they live? It could be their neighbor in the residence hall. It could be their neighbor in the community. It could be a friend, it could be a classmate. I think sometimes, especially as a first year student, you might feel a little bit invisible and you don't think you have anything to offer. But I think students have a lot more to offer than sometimes they give themselves credit for.
Right.
So that's another thing. I think just this idea of like, how can your educational experience be self-driven and purposeful? Nobody ever talked to me about that. I'm sure some students get that in various capacities, but I think I missed out on that. So this idea of like, how can you set up your educational experience, and how can you go to those relationships and connections and those people on campus that can really help you? I mean, not only for the 4 years that you're here, but also if you can develop those friendships and connections, which you're probably going to hold on to, some of them at least, maybe for the rest of your life, whether that be professional, personal. You're going to share memories from college. This is a big time. This is a big time for students. So I think that idea of like, you know, what can you set up? What can you build? You know, can you study abroad? Can you get involved in an organization? Can you connect with a mentor? Can you do a volunteer internship? Can you shadow somebody? You know, what can you really set up, and what can you kind of take from this experience? I think sometimes students don't start to figure that out until their last year or two, you know, and I think that's a big loss. So how we as a university and a culture can start to foster that kind of coming in, I think that could pay dividends for the university and most importantly for those students.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. You know, I think that that's so interesting that you brought up this mentorship piece. I'm currently working with a student group, the First Gen Student Alliance,
Mhm.
and they're actually implementing a program like that within their own club.
Mhm.
So essentially, some of the older students are, you know, ones that may be juniors or seniors that are first gen are going to be paired up with some of the newer students in the club, and they'll
Mhm.
follow them until one of them graduates, and then they'll switch roles.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you know, I think that's so great. We
I
found,
love it. I love
yeah,
that.
we found so much literature that just expands on that so much that it's just so important to have someone that, you know, no matter what happens, you can just go talk to them about anything. You know?
Absolutely. And to plant that seed, you know, I think
Right.
it's one thing for it just to happen. You just kind of like, somebody maybe offers it to you because they're a good person, or like somebody
Right.
offered it to them. But to actually formally set that up is really cool, because you're planting that seed and you're setting that cultural expectation that it might take a few years to get the kind of momentum going on something like that. But
Hmm.
once it does, it just pays such huge dividends. And I love that. And then like I said, and like you hinted at, Nathan, it's this idea that as you get older, you realize you have something to give back to somebody else, you
Right.
know, and that kind of completes the circle, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. And the other piece of that is making sure that that relationship is okay for
Hmm.
both people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of times in these helping professions, it's almost like a mentorship
Yep. Yep.
where, you know, someone can bring a lot to the table,
Hmm.
you know, because people are going through a lot right now.
Yep. Yep.
So it's not only just setting it up, but then guiding them through,
Yep.
you know, certain things that may be brought up during their conversations.
Yep.
Um,
And it takes some effort. It really
yeah,
does. And it takes some like a conscious effort. So
right.
if you hear some weird sound, my dog is laying next to me sleeping, and she's snoring. So I don't know. I'm still awake. That's not me snoring, I swear.
Gotcha. So moving forward, I guess our next question would just be, you know, you spoke about your undergrad and, you know, coming to Ship, and it just
Mhm.
was such an amazing experience for you. You know, why did you choose to stay? Why did you choose to work with students?
Mhm.
You know, just that piece there.
Yeah, I mean that's the question, isn't it? I mean, I just think that like you said, that time for me was such a influential time, and such a time of growth, and I just love the environment. You know, I just think there's something to be said for that. 18 to 22, you're most likely, most students are kind of on their own to a degree. You know, you're making independent choices as a kind of pseudo adult, so to speak. And I was able to grow in a lot of ways. And I just saw that as a really rewarding, enriching time, and I wanted to be a part of that, and it just kind of clicked for me, and I was able to, again, I mentioned happenstance earlier. I was able to be offered a part-time coaching position. I had never planned on being a coach. And when it was offered to me from Steve Spence, who was taking over as the head track and field coach at the same time as he was hiring me, I said, hey, like, there's no way I can do this. He said, hey, you could be a coach. He said, if I can do it, you can do it. And he said, don't sell yourself short. And he took a chance on me. And I started working with students the year after I graduated. There were some challenges with that. It was interesting working with being the coach of student athletes that I was literally on the team with a few months later.
Right.
But I kind of figured it out. I mean, there's some kind of learning experiences as I went. But that was so natural and such a great transition for me that I just was like, this is really what I want to do. And I knew that Ship had a good counseling program, and I had a few friends who went through the program, and actually some friends that I still stay in touch with to this day, actually. And they said, you'd be a great fit for this. You really should think about it and check it out. So I did, and I focused on college counseling, and I guess the rest is history. But in the meantime, doing the actual work, it's been hard. It's been rewarding. It's been challenging. I've learned a lot. Seen transitions at Ship as an institution. Seen cultural change with just kind of our world. I mean, I was a student at Ship when we had a computer lab. I mean, this computer lab was like,
wow,
12 computers, right? It was an email lab, and it was all like DOS, like you clicked F5 to send the email, and it was no graphics on the screen. And
right.
now look at where we are now. I mean, we're zooming from home.
Yeah.
So it's been, there's been a lot of changes, but it's been really, really cool to see. And I've been able to, I guess, close that circle by working with students in various capacities that then come back to school again, or they maybe they're old enough that they actually have a kid of their own, and I get to see them bring their kids on campus, or come to a sporting event, and that's been cool. In that regard, it's I see that it's truly a Ship community, like we talk about. So I'm glad I chose this this direction. I really am. It's been rewarding, and I do love Ship.
Yeah. As I said, our discussion thus far has been really engaging, really
Yeah.
inspirational, and
Right.
I have learned a lot. While you were talking about the reason you chose to work with students, I heard you circling back to, SHIP, your experience while you were in SHIP, and the connection you had with some friends that you are still in contact with to this day. Going forward, it leads me to my next question.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your inspiration or mentor?
So I always say this, I chuckle because this happens so often. I'm sure you guys go through this as well. Like, someone will say, what's your favorite this, or what's your single this or that? And I always say, I never can just pick one, So I feel like we've all been inspired by a lot of people, and hopefully all of us have had some type of mentor in our lives. And I've been lucky to have, more than one. But I mean, I think it has to start with like my mom. I mean, she's been an inspiration and mentor. My dad passed away, and I guess it's been 9 years now. And just to see her, see the family go through that and see her resilience. I mean, she was inspiration before that, but since then it's been amazing to see. So she's always been a mentor and inspiration. And that's kind of like, quote unquote, on the home front, very close to home. Just kind of globally, the people that inspire me, I think of two, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela, people who just almost bigger than life, in the sense that they were doing such important, powerful work, and they were moved to do it by something way bigger than them, and they did it for others. And in their cases, they were able to impact the world, and millions and millions and millions, or maybe probably billions of people that they were impacted by their selfless work. I mean, that is the most amazing inspiration for me, and what they went through to kind of accomplish what they did for me is very, very inspiring. I've had some mentors here at Ship, actually, connected to graduate school, and some of the folks that I've stayed in touch with since then. I think of Shirley Hess, who passed away. I guess that was in 2012. And she was a friend, she was a mentor, she was a colleague, she was an advisor, she was a professor, an instructor, and just an amazing person. And she was both an inspiration and a mentor to me. And I miss her. I'll miss her, till the day I die. She was an amazing person. And two other faculty members in that department, Kurt Krause and Ford Brooks, have been really good mentors and friends and inspirations to me. And my good friend, Glenn Thompson, I've known Glenn for 20, 25 years now. Now he's a coaching colleague, and he was a friend before that. Just an amazing guy who's a friend, an inspiration, and a mentor. And then the other thing too, I think is important, that a lot of the athletes and the students I've worked with, like, they can be mentors too. It's in a different way, because I think we as professionals always need to be learning. I think we're not always just giving. Like we also receive, and we also have to grow, and we also have to be open to growth and open to learning, and it's not a one-way street. So I can't tell you how many times I've been inspired by the work ethic and the perseverance and the resilience of the athletes that I work with and the students that I've worked with, as a counselor, as a coach. Their inspirations and sometimes have been mentors in a different way, and they've shaped my thinking and made me reflect on things and learn things. And sometimes they were difficult lessons, but I think they've been that. And I guess the other piece is just kind of like the daily examples of inspiration. I'm sure you all can understand, like, sometimes you just stumble across things that inspire you. I was watching something recently on Netflix. It was about like Nat Geo was doing a special on drug sales in New York City, and it was a really interesting show. And I learned that there's a group of EMTs in Brooklyn who it's Black owned, Black run, not really owned, but I guess owned, Black run group of EMTs that it's all volunteer. And I was like, that is unbelievable what they do, because like the world of drugs is really intense in terms of how it impacts our society, and the deaths and the trauma and the mark it leaves on society. And to think that people every day just volunteer their time to work in ambulances and go out and save overdose victims and get folks to the hospital and never ask anything for it was inspiring to me. So there's just the kind of the daily inspirations, I think, that I come across in my day-to-day life. So they're just a few. And again, I can't pick just one, as you guys are probably seeing this trend with me.
Right. I think it's good to have a group of people around you, whether they're afar or within reach. I just say that that's just so important. So we're going to be wrapping up here in just a minute. I just want this question wasn't on the list that I gave you. And I'm sorry for bringing it up, but I think it's going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people. So really quickly, as we wrap up, last question, I was wondering if you could just share something inspirational or something for students that may be listening, some piece of advice, something.
A piece of advice. Wow.
Or words of encouragement even.
Yeah. That's a good one. I would say two things. Your actions impact others more than you may ever know. That's probably one. And another one would be, it's cliche, but thinking about COVID, there have been silver linings, and it's impacted people in the worst possible way. And you would never want to minimize someone who's literally lost somebody that they love because of it. But trying to find, in the midst of all this, some way to see the world differently, maybe in a better way, some way to adapt and be resilient and think of a different approach, or if you don't get as much time with your loved ones, valuing the time you get, or even the kind of not so great way to see them through video, or just doing things differently. And now we're on break, and students are on break, and may be busy with work, or if they're taking other classes, during the winter term, even if they have a little bit of time to spend with the ones they love, just to make it meaningful and really thank the people who are there for them, because none of us could do it alone. None of us. I mean, even the students that are really without support, I think there's always at least some degree of support, someone there who has helped you, and just really, thank that person that's been in your corner, and thank that person that's really helped you. Because again, I don't think any of us can do this alone.
Right. Right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
As we wrap up, John and I, really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Listen, I appreciate what you guys are doing too. And I appreciate that when I got the email, Nathan, I was like tickled, and to think that I'm the first guest is pretty cool. So I've hopefully I've set the bar low.
Extremely high.
Extremely
Extremely high.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's
Yeah,
only going to
absolutely.
get better here on out.
Yeah.
But again, thank you for what you're doing. And I know it's a time. I mean, we're like a week from Christmas, and it's a time you all could just be like watching Netflix with a blanket over you, but you're quote unquote working. And that's cool that you asked me to be a part of this. And these are great questions, very, very, very insightful. And again, if I can be a resource to any students on campus, it could be related to the work I do. It could just be related to like, hey, I want to chat with that guy. Like he seems okay. And I have a question for him, or maybe I want to volunteer in that program. I want to be a peer educator. I want to do this. Like I'm always a resource, and I'm happy to listen and help as much as I can.
Absolutely. And we will put all of your contact information on the flyer. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you will see Kurt's email address, his location on campus, how you can get in contact with him. And
Hey, I have to say, I thought you were going to ask me about my favorite part of working at Ship.
Yes.
Is
Do
that
we have
part of
time for
it?
that? Do you have?
I'm going to say it real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
People joke around with me about this all the time. They say I can't walk across campus without running into like 36 people, and that's the part that I like the most. Sometimes I say, I shouldn't even send emails or make phone calls, because I walk across campus and someone's like, hey, I've been meaning to call you, or hey, I wanted to get back to you in that email. And that's like where I get most of my work done. So I can
Right.
walk, and also it lets me walk to Dunkel once in a while, which is kind of cool. But walking across campus is my favorite part. We have a pretty campus, and I get to see my friends and people I know. So that's great. So,
and you get to go outside,
and
especially
I get to
right
go
now.
outside. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, thank you
guys,
so much.
it's been great. It's been great. And thanks again for the invite.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.